What happens when the pursuit of justice is met with failure and the system leaves a victim powerless? Today, we unravel the story of Lipstick, a movie that shocked audiences with its raw portrayal of violence, betrayal, and revenge. Starring Margot Hemingway in her debut role, this gripping drama is as haunting as it is unforgettable. Join me as I take you through this powerful tale of a woman's fight for justice and the heartbreaking sacrifices she makes along the way. Chris McCormick is a highly sought-after fashion model living a glamorous life in Los Angeles. She's the epitome of success, gracing magazine covers and earning admiration everywhere she goes. Chris shares a close bond with her younger sister Kathy, a curious and innocent teenager. Kathy often spends time at Chris's elegant apartment, inspired by her sister's confidence and lifestyle. One day, Chris decides to support Kathy's interest in music and hires Gordon Stewart, a piano teacher. Gordon seems polite and professional at first, but there's something unsettling about his demeanor. He's fascinated by Chris's beauty and clearly views her as more than just Kathy's sister. Despite this, Chris, being used to admiration as a model, doesn't immediately think much of it. Gordon eventually comes to Chris's apartment under the guise of discussing Kathy's lessons. Their conversation starts innocently enough, with Gordon making small talk and commenting on her apartment. However, he begins to focus on her beauty, offering excessive compliments that make Chris uncomfortable. She tries to shift the conversation back to Kathy, but Gordon doesn't relent. During their talk, Gordon notices an audio recording of Chris's voice, a piece she recorded for an advertisement. He becomes unusually fixated on it, asking her to play it for him. Reluctantly, Chris agrees, hoping to steer the conversation back on track. As the recording plays, Gordon's demeanor shifts further. He begins pacing the room, making cryptic comments about her voice and appearance, as if he's building up to something. Chris begins to sense his growing aggression and asks him to leave. But instead of complying, Gordon steps closer to her, invading her personal space. His tone becomes more demanding as he insists that Chris shouldn't treat him as just a music teacher. Chris, now visibly uneasy, firmly tells him to stop and moves toward the door to show him out. At this moment, Gordon's true intentions become clear. He suddenly grabs Chris's arm, preventing her from leaving the room. She tries to pull away, raising her voice and demanding that he let go, but he becomes more forceful. Gordon overpowers her, pinning her against the wall as she struggles to break free. Her protests grow louder, but Gordon doesn't relent. In a deeply unsettling and harrowing sequence, Gordon drags Chris to the floor. The camera captures her terror and helplessness as he physically dominates her. She pleads with him to stop, but Gordon ignores her cries. The scene is drawn out, showing the raw emotional and physical toll of the assault. Chris's fight against him underscores her strength, but she's ultimately overpowered. After the assault, Chris is left shattered, sitting alone in her apartment as she processes what has just happened. The silence in the room contrasts sharply with the violence of the previous moments, emphasizing her trauma. This pivotal scene sets the stage for the rest of the film as Chris decides to seek justice for the horrific violation she endured. Determined to seek justice, Chris files a police report and presses charges against Gordon. The case goes to trial, but the courtroom becomes a secondary battlefield. Gordon's defense attorney manipulates the narrative, portraying Chris as a promiscuous model who invited the assault through her lifestyle. Chris bravely recounts the attack, but her testimony is met with skepticism. The court ultimately rules in Gordon's favor due to a lack of concrete evidence, allowing him to walk free. Kathy, unaware of the full extent of Gordon's actions, continues her piano lessons with him. However, Gordon begins to manipulate and groom her, exploiting her innocence and trust. In one disturbing scene, Gordon invites Kathy to his home for a private lesson, where his behavior turns predatory. Kathy becomes uncomfortable and senses danger, but before things escalate, Chris arrives and rescues her sister just in time. This incident becomes a turning point for Chris. Realizing that the legal system has failed her and that her sister is now at risk, she decides to take justice into her own hands. In the film's climactic sequence, Chris confronts Gordon in a moment of raw emotion and anger. The confrontation escalates into a violent and controversial resolution, leaving audiences with lingering questions about morality, justice, and revenge. The movie ends on a somber note, reflecting the deep scars left by violence and the societal failure to protect victims. Lipstick is a powerful story that explores themes of trauma, resilience, and the lengths people go to protect their loved ones in the face of injustice.